Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second. In fact, we can start right now. It's past.
Oh yeah, I'm going to send out the tweets.
Sure. I am now recording.
Uh, I am now recording too. All right. Oh, sorry, I'm hearing myself double. I thought you were still talking. That was weird. It's like, why is he still talking? All right, 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, welcome to the Windows Central podcast, episode 203 for November 6th,
Good start.
2020. It's gonna be a great podcast. Obviously, I just screwed up the first sentence. It's been one of those weeks, folks. I'm sure if you're I want to say if you're in the U.S., you feel this pain, but I also feel like the rest of the world is feeling
Yeah,
the
I
pain
don't think we have a
of
choice
this
if you're on
week.
social media.
Yeah, it's been a thing. It almost feels kind of like a holiday, just a bad holiday, but we're getting through it, so it seems to be going pretty well. Uh, Not a ton of tech news happened, although we do have quite a lot to talk about in the podcast because there were a lot of smaller things. So this week we're going to be talking about Microsoft Cloud PC, some not so new info, but new info, well, newish info came out this week. We just want to talk about what that even is and why the cloud is such a big deal to Microsoft and what this means for the future of Windows itself, which is going to be interesting. Surface Pro 8. We are expecting a Surface Pro 8, of course. The big question is it a new redesign that mimics the Surface Pro X? Or is it going to be the same old thing, but with a new processor? And this week we may have gotten an answer, although I'll let Zach fill in with the news that he's been able to dredge up from his sources. We'll also talk about Razer had a very interesting week. I published the Razer Isker review, which is behind me. You can't see it. It's their $500 gaming chair. And I just want to briefly talk about that because it's not often you get to test a $500 gaming chair. That said, I didn't realize Secret Labs, who pinged me later, they want me to review the chair, also make similarly priced chairs. And it's always funny because if you go down like the office chair route, you start getting to like $1,000 chairs and even more than that. So it's not that expensive, but it is pricey. We'll also talk about Razer Book 13. So I'm surprised it's going to get more interest from our readers, at least going by comments. Razer announced their first non-gaming premium ultrabook, and it, besides missing LTE, which that's a real niche Dan thing, this laptop really checks all the boxes for me. Like, I feel like this is just awesome. We'll go through the specs and features of that, and I'll explain why I think that is. Some Surface Duo news, since everybody loves hearing about the Duo. Not a ton. We are expecting imminently the monthly update for bug fixes, but it may not come till Monday, but it's going to be real soon. That said, SwiftKey pushed out their beta keyboard update, and it delivered a new feature for Surface Duo users that many of us have been wanting for a long time. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to wrap it up with some Xbox reviews, Series X, Series S. We had both up this week, and we'll kind of go through that and our thoughts about the future of Microsoft gaming. Zach, how are you hanging on this week in cheery London?
Not too bad. We're officially on lockdown 2 as of right now, so not a lot going on in my life. I know there's a lot going on in the States.
Yeah, we're not locked down. They are imposing a little bit more restrictions. Places need to close at
Yeah.
9:30. I can't buy alcohol after 9:30. I gotta keep that in mind. Although I've cut down, I only have like 3, 4 drinks a week now.
Uh,
So, but I did get a haircut just in time. Just
nice.
I'm a little worried that they are going to shut this stuff down, so I don't want to be a complete barbarian, or at least put it off as long as I can. But yeah, it's been kind of fun. So anyway, I suppose we'll get to the main topics here. So tell us about Microsoft Cloud PC. So, well, what happened this week? And like, what is Cloud PC and what do you think it means for the future of Windows?
Sure. So we talked a bit about this before. Back when I broke the story about Windows 10X launching without Win32, I'd also heard that Microsoft were planning to replace that with streaming Win32 instead. So although you won't be able to run Win32 programs locally on 10X at launch, you will be able to stream them via the cloud using technology similar to Windows Virtual Desktop. Funnily enough, that same day, Mary Jo Foley from ZDNet had a story about Microsoft's Cloud PC, which was essentially what I was hearing. This remote service that allows users to install programs to the cloud and stream them to any PC, any client, it doesn't matter, and have them run as if they were natively installed. And we've not really heard much about it since then. I think that story came out in July's time frame. Mary Jo has said since the beginning that she's hearing that it will show up in the spring of 2021, which aligns perfectly with Windows 10X. But this isn't a Windows 10X specific thing. This is a service that can be applied to all kinds of platforms: Windows 10 desktop, phones, Mac OS, Linux, you name it. If you can access a web browser or download a client that makes it more seamless, then you should be able to install any program, any Windows program to the cloud and stream that to your device. And this week we saw for the first time a sort of glimpse at what this back end, or rather front end of the service may look like. Cloudpc.microsoft.com was up very briefly, and it seems to still be in a test phase for internal people only. But some people were able to log in and set up workspaces and stuff, and Walking Cat on Twitter was able to see some web pages of the service. It's sort of saying what it is. Like, this is a cloud workspace. You can install programs here. It also gave you a limited selection of virtual machines at this time, but things like you could have 4 gigabytes of RAM with one CPU and 96 gigs of storage, or 8 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigs of storage with 2 CPUs, so on and so forth. But we didn't see it in action. I don't think the service was fully working yet, again, because it's not been announced. I think it just accidentally went online for a brief period of time. The website's down now. If you go to cloudpc.microsoft.com, it yields no results. The service, they've completely shut it down because I don't think it was supposed to be live. But it's just further confirmation that yes, they are indeed working on this, and yes, it does seem to be on track for spring 2021. Microsoft hasn't announced this officially yet. They've not announced pricing. We expect it'll be part of Microsoft 365, because if it's not, that'd be insane. Because you will have to pay for this, I think. I'd be surprised if this is a free service. So if you're subscribed to Microsoft 365, whether that's the enterprise, maybe even the personal accounts, you should get access to this at some point. And as I mentioned, it should be integrated to Windows 10X so that you can install Win32 programs, even though there's no local Win32 program support. And I'm sure there'll be Windows 10 desktop integration as well, because Windows Virtual Desktop already does that. And for those who don't know how it works, enterprises with Windows Virtual Desktop can set up virtual machines in the cloud, or where users can install programs and whatnot, but you don't have to access that installation via like a remote desktop window. What happens instead is you can actually have those programs installed in the virtual machine in the cloud show up on your local version of Windows 10 as if they were a native app in the start menu and stuff. So when you click on the app icon, what it does is it loads up remote desktop and just loads that program that's installed on the virtual machine in the cloud instead. So it just makes the experience feel a little more native to the user and stuff. They don't have to see like another taskbar, another entire Windows installation on top of that. They just get access to their program. They can minimize it, launch local programs on their device, go back to their remote desktop application and continue on as if it was just part of their workflow like normal. So that's kind of nice, and that's what we're expecting Cloud PC to be, and that's basically everything up until right now.
I mean, we've always talked about in the podcast. I try to tell people think of where it's interesting to talk about, like, say, Surface Pro 8, which we'll get to, stuff that's coming out in the next 6 months, right? Everybody wants to know that and the details there. But I always like to pause for a moment and be like, where are things going to be in 5 years? Actually, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And the further you get out, the crazier it's hard to predict. And I feel like in the 80s, it was a little bit easier. You could be like, well, we'll have smaller computers. They'll be more powerful. But the architecture of technology around us is changing dramatically almost every few years.
Yeah.
And sure, we'll have a smartphone something in 10 years, right? But this idea of like an operating system in the cloud, I feel like is the future. It's something we've talked about before, this idea of ambient computing, which is the idea that you just have displays around you behind that display is, of course, a microprocessor, but it's effectively just a display. And that display streams an operating system, and it can basically follow you with your profile. We already see a little bit of this. You're seeing it in like Edge, which syncs a lot of your information. Of course, Office syncs all your information. Um, and I really do feel like this is tied in 5G as we get
Yeah.
more high-speed internet. And you're going to start to see these devices because I really do believe at some point in the future, it's going to be weird to run an operating system locally on a device. Not necessarily for everyone. Some people are going to absolutely need what I call localized discrete computing, where you need everything there, the GPU, you need the processor. Like there will be people who need that. But for general computing purposes, I feel like ambient computing is going to be the way. And you don't manage it. The OS comes down. There's no stability issues. There's no patching. There's no installation of drivers. Um, and this is going to be, you'll start to see it, of course, for IT, enterprise, business cases
You already
where
are.
you have, yeah. And, we already see these thin clients devices, and that's what they are, right? They already stream a lot to the device itself. A lot of it right now, it's hard to imagine because a lot of us are still like, I just want good LTE. And of course, the world is like 5G. But presumably 5G will, get larger. I mean, don't forget, you have like SpaceX putting thousands of satellites into space to deliver internet. They're doing things with balloons. I know Facebook, I believe, has a balloon that floats around for internet, for giving internet to remote regions of the planet. Like there is this idea of connecting everything. Of course, hopefully we don't end up in a Mad Max world where we just don't have anything. But I don't know. I think this is smart of Microsoft. Of course, they already have Azure computing.
Yeah.
And they've talked about this idea before of a world computer, which I think is such a fascinating way to think of the internet, what it's turning into. And so they already have the infrastructure to make all this happen. And seeing them push down that road isn't surprising. I just like to talk about it because it's like, again, the slow boiling frog thing we talked about last week, where these are small, subtle changes you don't really notice day to day. But going out 5 years, I think this stuff is going to be way more mainstream. If you look at game streaming already, that's another thing, right? We're already talking about, yeah, why have a console? Just stream everything from the cloud to your phone or whatever tiny device you have. That's another part of this. And, I think you could speak a little bit to this, that a lot of the technology that they're using for game streaming is the stuff that they're going to be using for OS streaming as well.
Yeah, they've been testing this technology for years. They were testing it back in 2011, 2012. I think the first time they demoed game streaming was with Halo 4 on the Xbox 360 in an internal all-hands meeting.
Right.
Obviously, that took a while to show up in a public product, being xCloud. But the technology across both are very similar, if not the same. Maybe Microsoft will tell you that they are different, but I have a feeling that behind the scenes, they're common, they're brother and sister, more or less, right? That they're definitely from the same family of technology. And if you can stream a game, because let's be real, gaming is all video all the time, and it has to stream your inputs back and stuff. That's a lot of data to be pushing back and forth. But if Microsoft can do it, which they've proven they can, then streaming a static application is a piece of cake, like Word or Outlook or something, where the UI remains mostly the same. The only thing that's really changing is the contents of the email you're clicking on. That's very easily streamable, right? Especially since you're not constantly adding inputs back to the thing for control. You're just, slowly clicking on things or typing into it, which should be fine. Like streaming should be able to handle that no problem. Of course, that depends on your location and your internet. But this is early days for this sort of technology. Like, I'm not saying next year will be the year that all of your apps are streamed. Right. Like we're very far away from that. But there are locations in the world where they can already take advantage of this. Enterprises and businesses are already doing it. The question is, how long will it take for it to become something that consumers and people at home in their personal lives take advantage of it as well? And I think that's what Cloud PC is going to focus on. But obviously, we don't know for sure just yet.
Yeah, to me, it's still strange. Like we'll also talk about the Xbox, the new Series X and Series S later. But if you look at the Series X, right, this giant black box, it's all about cooling and efficiency. I feel like in 10 years, 15 years, that's going to look really weird. Like people are going to look back at that like caveman
Like,
drawing on
oh, you
walls kind
still
of thing.
game on a console?
Like it's like you have this box that you have to plug in. It draws a lot of power, right? I mean, it does.
Yeah.
Um, it generates heat. It has fans.
Mhm.
This is always a concern with gaming. It's like, is it loud? Am I going to hear it? Meanwhile, you have like companies like Samsung and LG building TVs that are paper thin that can roll out onto your wall.
Yeah.
The future I could see is you're going to have like a paper thin TV on the wall. You're not going to have a big box on the ground that pumps out heat and has a fan just to play a video game.
Well,
It's just going to connect to the internet.
this happened with movies, right? Like back in the day, we had
Right.
VHSs
Yeah,
and
good.
DVD
Yep.
players, and which were really thick that sat below the TV. These
Yep.
days, it's an app on your paper thin LG OLED, Netflix, Apple TV, you name it. It's just a simple app that runs on the TV. You don't have to have any extra applications or appliances, and you can stream any movie you've ever wanted in 4K HDR. And it's amazing. Like the same can absolutely happen for gaming, and the same can absolutely happen for programs on a thin client PC. Cloud PC, if it works, will be the saving grace for Windows 10 on ARM, right? Because then you no longer have, you're no longer limited. I can actually run technically Adobe Premiere Pro or Photoshop on a Surface Pro X that's installed on an Intel PC in the cloud that has a dedicated GPU, lots of RAM, and I can do all of my video editing or photo editing on my Surface Pro X just by streaming that program from my cloud PC. That's a great way to look at it, in my opinion, because you're not going to be using this all the time, right? And for the most of the time, most people are going to be in the browser still, which is locally installed. But for those times where you do need to get access to like a heavy application on a device that may not necessarily be powerful enough or equipped to handle that program, Cloud PC to the rescue.
And just a couple of things. One, I want to shout out. I forgot the name of the game. It was from 2013. I want to say it was on Windows Phone. It was called like Galactica or no, I don't know what it's called. But it was their first game that used cloud processing. So you do these space battles.
Right.
And then like you would like move your ships and all this kind of stuff, and then you would start the battle, and it would render on the servers like a 3D version of that battle, like a movie. It would render that, and then it would be a couple minutes, and then you get a notification, and you can watch the battle. And you didn't know what was going to happen in the battle. You didn't know who won, and you need to watch it like a little movie, and then it'd be like you won or you lost, and you see your ships. It was wild, and that was their kind of one of their first explorations of this sort of technology.
Yeah. They also had that sort of similar promise on the Xbox One when it first announced. I remember them pushing cloud-powered graphics or engineering and stuff on the console quite a bit. And I think Crackdown 3 was going to be one of those first games that was like, yes, we're utilizing the power of the cloud to render and generate physics in the game and stuff. Because if you remember when Crackdown 3 was first announced, it was very much pushing this idea that the whole world is destructible. And the Xbox One itself couldn't locally like process all of that, so they would hand that off to the cloud, and the cloud would process it. The game launched, and it wasn't exactly all it was hyped up to be. I
still like that game, by the way.
Yeah, it was a fun game, but it definitely wasn't the fully destructible thing that they promised it would be. But I think it's actually there was like a lawsuit or something, or a company was bought out, and the technology they were using went to them, so the game developers no longer had the technology, or something along those lines. I can't remember, but. Yeah. The cloud is the future. I think it's fair to say. You know, all the like, local clients we're using today are just there for today, and I think in the future, the local client will just simply act as a platform for streaming everything and everyone.
Just a couple other things. Someone mentioned about the Soviets had this idea of a centralized computer that ran their country, and if that sounds like this, no, because this is a parallel distributed processing. It's a different architecture instead of a centralized processing system, which is a devastating weakness because if that goes down, this whole system goes down. So you definitely don't want that. Parallel distributed, though, means nodes can go down and you'll have interrupted service, but you're not going to have the whole thing go down. So that's a better way to think about it. Some other people pointed out, but what happens if the power goes out and you lose internet? Or rather, the internet goes out, and you don't have that.
Well, what do you do on a PC that has no internet today?
Exactly. So, like, two things. Like, go right now, go to your router, unplug it, and go use your Xbox and go turn on your PC. And actually, you might as well throw a smartphone in there. Technically, it cheats because it's LTE, but go into airplane mode. Now pick up those devices. Get back to me in 10 minutes after you lost your mind and you realize these devices don't do anything. Yeah, you now have a really expensive word processor.
Yes.
You can type something on it, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I lost power the other day for about 2 hours. Everything was point. There's no point. There's no point sitting in front of my computer
And
anymore. There's
not
nothing
only
I
that,
can.
technically, if you were writing a Word document on an application installed in the cloud, if you were to lose power, that virtual machine
It would
hasn't
back
lost
up.
power. So
Right.
that's still there. It's just you've disconnected from it. But whatever you were doing on there is still saved. So when your power does come back and you log back in and reconnect to that program, the last key you pressed will be there because the server didn't lose power. You lost power.
And you think about that, that's kind of cool. If I'm writing a document on my main PC, power goes down. Oh no,
You've lost it.
I just lost my document, right? But if it's saving to the cloud, you know what
Oh.
I do, and you do too. You launch your Surface Pro X.
Yeah.
It's got LTE. You go there, boom, just
There it is.
compute, finish your paper. So yeah, I find but it's relying on internet thing completely bogus. Sorry,
Yeah.
we already are completely reliant on the internet.
Yeah.
So I don't find that a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's the exact same reason why the original Xbox One and its vision failed, because Microsoft announced an always
Right.
connected, always online console, and the universe went crazy and went, that's unacceptable. You cannot do that. We're not ready. But turns out we were ready. And back in 2013, when the consoles came out, how many of you were disconnecting your Xbox Ones in 2013, 2014? Not many. I feel like Microsoft were absolutely right in their vision. They were just, as always, too early. And it bit them in the backside as a result.
Yeah. And then the third thing I just want to mention that's kind of interesting is, of course, this opens the door for AR glasses. So the problem of wearing wearable technology, specifically augmented reality, is how much of that hardware can you jam into a wearable device and still have it functional? The answer right now is HoloLens 2. It's got technically LTE connections, it's got Wi-Fi, it's got Bluetooth, it has a discrete localized processor and storage, and it has the full processing abilities for AR. That is $3,000, $3,500, and obviously
it's quite big.
It's not something. Yeah, it's not something you're going to put on and go to the mall and wear. So the question is, how do you shrink it down? And listen, there is going to be advancements in shrinking microprocessing down and those components. That's absolutely going to happen. But realistically speaking, offloading the whole operating system to the cloud via your connected phone is way easier. You could have a much smaller processor. You're going to require way less battery.
Yeah.
You're not going to require a lot of storage. Like, it's going to be all just streamed. Now, all of a sudden, you can get just light glasses with good battery life that are way less intrusive with a more immersive experience.
And
so
that's kind of what Apple's rumored to be doing with its AR glasses. At least with the first generation, is rumored to be powered by your iPhone. So all of the processing and stuff is offloaded from the glasses. Like the glasses do nothing but really just are a heads-up display for whatever's being processed on the phone. And that allows them to keep it slim and look like a normal pair of glasses. That's just like an interim step from it being powered by the phone to it being powered by the cloud. You put an LTE or a 5G chip in there, you don't need the phone anymore if it's offloaded to the cloud, right? But Apple's going the iPhone route because iPhone is their bread and butter, right? And let's make the iPhone a requirement for these glasses because then we sell more iPhones. That's basically their thinking.
Yeah, and it's a good... I mean, they have a brilliant ecosystem that they've been planning out around this stuff by using the phone. And using the phone to power the glasses is a good idea, but it's the same issue why tethering with your phone to your computer is not the same as having built-in LTE.
You need the phone, right? If you just walk out the house without your phone on you to run down the shop or something, your glasses are now useless because you haven't got your phone with you. They're just a pair of glasses at that point.
Plus, your processor is going to be busy doing the AR stuff, which is not trivial.
Mm-hmm.
So your phone will probably not be as performant. You're going to use, of course, battery life. Mm-hmm. Your phone's probably going to get warm in your pocket. So there are these like kind of other issues to contend with. And just real quickly, it's Curtis is saying in our comments right now that I just don't think our internet infrastructure is there to be reliable enough to support it.
Maybe not in the States.
Maybe not. Yeah, I mean, I could personally say that my internet is way more stable today in 2020 than it was 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. It rarely ever goes down for me. That's not saying it's perfect or I don't have fiber optic, for instance. That's a problem. Um, but we're talking 5, 10, 15 years in the future.
Yeah.
If you're taking the position that in 5, 10, 15 years, the infrastructure for internet across the United States has not improved, that's a bold prediction. I feel like, they're already trying to push this idea of that 5G wirelessly going to your homes. I think it's going to improve. I think these problems go away. Even the fact, I remember, I love bringing up history on this, like with the Pocket PC. When Pocket PCs came out, they didn't have Wi-Fi because there was really no Wi-Fi. No one had routers. There was a period where if you wanted internet, it was just Ethernet. You connected it to a PC. If you wanted Wi-Fi, you had to go buy an expensive router, and it was just like your laptop didn't have Wi-Fi built in. Like a lot of stuff didn't have Wi-Fi built into it. And so with Pocket PCs, eventually they came out with CF card for expansions, and you had to add Wi-Fi to it. And you're like, cool, I got Wi-Fi. But if you went to the coffee shop, you went to the movie theater, you went to Target, they had no Wi-Fi. So it didn't help you. That's why actually smartphones became kind of big and those two categories merged, because it did give you that always connected ability. But it took a long time before Wi-Fi popped up everywhere. Now you can go to Home Depot, you got Wi-Fi. Every retail place has Wi-Fi. Movie theaters have Wi-Fi. So that infrastructure took at least a decade. Airports, all that took a long time to build up. So again, the infrastructure did improve. It's not always perfect, but I think it's going to get better. So, yeah. But this is really the future of computing for a lot of ideas, So that's for cloud computing. I forgot to mention, it was supposed to start off the podcast with this, my Bluetooth update. If you notice, I am wearing the gray Surface earbuds this week, which were the ones that had problems last week. So my problem was I'm running a beautiful HP Omen Obelisk desktop PC, all decked out, but it ships with a Realtek Bluetooth 4.2 adapter built into it on the board. Bluetooth 4.2 is obviously behind Bluetooth 5.0, even more so 5.1, although 5.1 is barely out there. So I went out and bought a Bluetooth adapter, which I know people are going to ask me about it, so I'm just going to share the link in the comments right now so people don't have to ask which one I'm talking about. This is it's $13. They're all the same. They're all powered by Realtek. So it doesn't really matter what you buy. It just depends on how much money you can probably save. So $13. It's tricky to do this if you have a PC with built-in Bluetooth. So I want to explain that quickly. If you do go this route, $13, I think it's worth it. When you get it, don't plug it in. I know it's just a little USB thing. You want to plug it in. Don't. Go into your Bluetooth pairings and Windows settings. Delete all your Bluetooth pairings. Just go through, delete them all, remove. So it's going to be a pain. I had 20, so it took a long time.
Wow.
They weren't all active.
Oh,
it's just I test a lot of things. So remove all of them. Then you want to go to your device manager under Bluetooth, find the adapter. Should probably say Realtek 4.2 or something like that. Right click, disable it. It'll take a little while. You'll see the little circle thing going. Reboot your computer. Double check that it's disabled. Now plug in the adapter. You also, for some reason, I found this surprising, do need to download Realtek drivers. And if you buy the one that I suggest, it actually comes with a mini CD.
Yeah, I was going to say, so did mine. Look.
Yeah, so I actually do have a portable external CD-ROM, so
wow.
I did do it that way. But if you go into the support section on Amazon, they actually, for that product, they actually have the link and the Q&A thing, and you can download the drivers.
So I'm curious, did Windows Update not just see the drivers and install
them?
Oh, wow.
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, this felt in the installation tool, I felt like I was in 1998. It was just this really antiquated thing. And it's this feels real janky.
Yeah.
So install the drivers, reboot the computer, and you should be good. It'll turn on. Now you can pair. So now you go through and repair. Which brings me to, I'm wearing my Surface earbuds, and so far, they've been perfect. I've had no disconnection issues, which was the problem I had. I'd just be talking, all of a sudden it'd be disconnected. And then usually 8 times out of 10, it would reconnect in a few seconds. So it's kind of livable. I've had no issues this week with these, which listen, Bluetooth 5.0 device with a Bluetooth 5.0 dongle, it matters.
Yeah.
And then the second improvement I saw was with Microsoft Your Phone. So Your Phone just became way more faster in terms of notifications coming through, clicking on messages and it refreshing. Even app streaming was, of course, more quick, like faster. So the app is, I shared a video with Zach showing it in action, but it was basically all instant. And I had experienced that when I would use Surface Pro X, which has a Bluetooth 5 adapter built in. I was like, why does it work so well with the Surface, but not my desktop PC? And then it dawned on me, well, it's probably the Bluetooth 4.2 thing. And it is. So if you use Your Phone, if you're having instability issues with your Bluetooth and it's an older version, find the Bluetooth adapter you want, but try to get 5.0. Obviously, get 5.0. Otherwise, it's a stupid upgrade.
Waste of time.
Yeah. Follow those directions. I might do an article at some point. It gets a little, a simple article turns into 1,500 words. And Zach, you just got your own adapter in as well, but you haven't plugged it in.
Yeah, I've not tried it yet. The reason I got it is because I've had the same issues of Dan. Like my Surface Studio 1, I think it's Bluetooth 4.0, and the bandwidth just isn't great on it. It can handle a wireless keyboard and mouse, but if I throw in a pair of headphones or if I try to hook up a phone for the Your Phone calling stuff, it just starts falling apart. Either the keyboard disconnects, the mouse disconnects, the headphones disconnect, or the phone disconnects.
Yes.
And it's always random. Like one of them will disconnect, another will. Like it's as if it can't handle all of them at once, so it has to prioritize whichever ones are currently working the most. And sometimes it gets it really wrong. So yeah, I'm going to give this a go as well because I would love to be able to. Because I don't have my phone connected via Your Phone. For that reason, I have it via the Wi-Fi stuff, so it does the notifications and the photos and whatnot. But I don't use it for
phone calls,
or the apps streaming stuff as well, because I just can't. My Bluetooth can't handle it. I also don't pair my Surface earbuds to my Surface Studio for that same reason, because this technically counts as two Bluetooth devices, I think, because it connects.
There's an LE, and then there's a Bluetooth,
and it destroys everything that's connected. It's, oh, now my keyboard doesn't work. That's great. So yeah, I'm going to give this a go and hopefully it fixes things.
I'll also say the audio quality is better.
Oh, really? That's good.
Sometimes it would get a little static. You could just tell the bit rate wasn't as high, but now it sounds great. So best $13 I've spent in a long time. Someone's asking, does Surface Studio 2 have Bluetooth? Yeah, it does have Bluetooth built in. I believe it's 4.2. The same issue, and I have that problem too, where the wireless keyboard would occasionally disconnect, because everything with Studio comes with a mouse and a keyboard.
Yep.
And they're both Bluetooth.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't uncommon once you started adding, as Zach said, more devices to that Bluetooth, you would start to have these issues. I haven't tried my Xbox controller. I'm positive everything's going to kind of work better here. So $13. If you're listening to the audio podcast, you're probably wondering what I'm talking about for Amazon. So here you go. It's just called, the brand is, I can't pronounce it. It's just ZEXMTE. Again, ZEXMTE. It's a micro Bluetooth 5.0 adapter for PC. It's $13.95 right now. The important thing to remember here is, I said, though, if you don't want that one, they're all Realtek based. They're all running the same chip, is what I'm trying to say. So you can just type in micro Bluetooth 5.0 adapter or Bluetooth 5.0 adapter into Amazon. You'll see a bunch of them. Find the one that has a good rating. Find the one that has a good price that you want, and give it a go. But a little bit of pain on a laptop. You can definitely do this on a laptop, but you basically permanently sacrifice a USB port. So, I mean, even I run out of USB ports on my this tower, which kind of stinks. But there we go. So that's my Bluetooth story. And if you don't hear me complain about my Bluetooth anymore, then consider it a success. Let's talk about rumors and upcoming stuff. Surface Pro 8. Yes. Notably absent from any typical September, October announcements from Microsoft. And to be fair to Microsoft, they don't necessarily do per year updates on the Surface Pro series, by which I mean sometimes it goes 14 or 16 months.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the case here. But Zach, what happened this week with Surface Pro 8, and what have you been hearing?
So weirdly on eBay, the listing. There was a listing on eBay that said this is a Surface Pro 8 engineering sample, and it's running an Intel 11th gen processor with 32 gigs of RAM and a terabyte of storage, all of which, of course, is not available on the current Surface Pro line. So perhaps it was real. Me and Dan cannot verify it because we didn't buy it. The listing did sell apparently. I don't know if it actually sold, if the seller actually just pulled the listing once we started reporting on it. But there was a potential Surface Pro 8 engineering sample that showed up on eBay for sale. And what it really revealed is not a lot. It appears that the Surface Pro 8 prototype in question here, if it is legitimate, was it just looks like a Surface Pro 7, but with updated internals. So the internals were an 11th Gen i7, 1165 G7 processor, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and 1 terabyte of Samsung SSD storage. The Surface Pro 7 maxed out at 16 gigs. So this would line up with what they did with the Surface Book 3. For the first time this year, Surface Book 3 could be configured with 32 gigs of RAM. The Pro 7 maxed out at 16, as did the Surface Book 2. So it looks like Microsoft is bringing 32 gigs of RAM to the Pro 8 as well. So there's two things that this could be, or three things. One, it could be a total fake, which I'm not entirely convinced of. I actually think this is legitimate because some of the photos that they posted, look, this could be photoshops, but some of the stuff they posted, it lends credits to this being a real thing, because there's a lot of things you can easily miss from photoshopping prototype screenshots and whatnot. So one, it could be fake, but I don't think it is. Two, this is an early prototype where they were just testing the internals in the current housing because the new design wasn't ready yet, which seems unlikely because I feel like these designs are finalized way in advance, way before the chips are even available, really, in some instances. And then the third one is the Surface Pro 8 will be a Surface Pro 7 with an 11th gen processor, which is likely the most disappointing, but also the most likely in my opinion. So I've heard some weird things. So I mentioned last week that the Pro 8 will be announced in January. That's what I've heard. But I've also heard that the announcement will only be for commercial customers. There will not be a consumer-specific push for the Surface Pro 8 at launch, which tells me that there's no significant design coming. Otherwise, if there was, why would you limit that to commercial customers? You know there's going to be people out there who aren't enterprises who want to buy this as well, unless the design is the same as the Pro 7 and the only changes are internal. So if what I've heard is correct, then I believe that this Pro 8 prototype that showed up on eBay is the real deal and is likely close to final. And the reason I say that as well is because there's no prototypes markings on it, although we don't get a view under the kickstand, which is where the prototype markings usually are. I think this looks legit, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is what actually ships in January.
Little bit disappointing,
yeah.
But at the same time, and you've suggested this before, that this gives the Surface Pro X design
another year
as a category also a little bit more breathing room, because we talked about this on the podcast last week. If you want to know, if Pro 8 looks increasingly like Pro X, it'll never be Pro X. It'll never be that thin. They got to add vents, so you're gonna have venting all around it. They got to add a fan, at least for the i7 model, and larger heat pipes. There's going to be a smaller battery probably. So there's going to be issues they need to contend with. But the overall kind of design look, the slightly larger display, possibly the pen and the keyboard, as I would suspect they do. If that came out right now, or if that even came out, say, in October, like, it does take away from the Pro X. The Pro X is then just like, you're getting it just for the LTE. And there's technically no reason they couldn't make a Surface Pro with LTE. They've done it in the past, but now I'm starting to think they probably won't do a Surface Pro with LTE. They're going to that'll be one distinction that they'll keep. But it's a little disappointing. I think I'm getting a little bored of the Pro series, the Surface Pro series. They're great. I mean, I love my Pro 7, but when you use the Pro X, and you go to that larger display with the thin bezels and the pen, it's like, I feel like I'm taking a step back to the Pro.
But one of the reasons why I think they don't update the standard Pro's design is because there's an entire ecosystem of accessories around that design now, going from the Pro 3 up until today. So Pro 3 was 2014? That's a long time. And it's also the reason why Apple doesn't move from Lightning, or why, Apple took such a long time to move from the 30 pin to the Lightning itself, because when you change stuff like that, you essentially cut out an entire market of accessories, and especially for the pro line, which is very popular in the enterprise. Enterprises have their own specific, accessories and things that may not even be sold to the public, but just built specifically for whichever enterprise or business that requires them. And changing the design messes all of that up, and you potentially limit your market at that point. If an enterprise has built specific accessories for the Pro 7 or 6 or 5 or 4 design, and then the Pro 8's got a brand new design that is no longer supported with this accessory that the company spent $1 million distributing in all of their headquarters and whatnot, that enterprise isn't buying the Pro 8. They're going to hang on to their Pro 7 for as long as possible. So Microsoft has to tread a fine line. How much can they update without cutting off those markets? And there's some changes they could do. They can't change the thickness or the ports, or where the ports are, I think. They could probably increase the screen size a bit. Obviously internally as well.
And they've done that in the past, where they've increased screen size without changing the device. So they just make the bezels thinner.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see them going from like a 12.3 to a 12.7 inch.
Yeah.
And to achieve that. It still won't be as big as the Pro X, which has a 13-inch display, but that's because the Pro X was built ground up to be a 13-inch tablet, whereas this wasn't. So yeah, you're right. I think they'll do that. I could also see them. I forgot what the Pro 7 even has for ports.
It's USB-A, USB-C, headphone jack, Surface Connect, micro SD. The other thing they could add is the removable SSD stuff, right? I think that's a big thing enterprises would want, because being able to take an SSD out and destroy it if the PC is, dealing with sensitive data is always a good thing. Right now, you can't do it at the Surface Pro line because the SSDs are integrated. So the only way to destroy the SSD is to take it apart and destroy it, or destroy the whole thing, which is a complete waste. But yeah, so a removable SSD would be nice as well. Oh, and also LTE. I have heard that there may be a Pro 8 with LTE. Which would be good as well, because then the Pro X isn't the only one. Because I know there are enterprises who need LTE but aren't able to move to ARM for obvious reasons, and the Pro 8 could serve that function.
Interesting. It's been years since they've done
Pro 5.
6. Was it Pro 5?
It was Pro 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's a dual core chip. I still hear people recommend them, bro, dual core, can't do it. There was a. You can make fun of Intel. Like I said, you can make fun of Bluetooth, but every once in a while there is an actual upgrade that's pretty significant. Going from dual to quad core was a big deal for the Pro series.
Yeah.
Going from Bluetooth 4.2 to 5.0 was a big deal. Going from, what was it, Marvell to Athros.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. All this kind of stuff really matters. Wi-Fi 6 matters. I keep telling people that. Even if you don't have a Wi-Fi 6 router, it matters. Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully we'll hear more about this over the coming weeks. It'll be kind of interesting in January to see if that is actually what happens. But let's get to some other exciting news here. So let's talk about Razer, who's been, I love covering Razer. They have very good PR in the sense that they're easy to work with, but they also have a constant planned out stream of products to announce, which keeps me busy, but also keeps them exciting as a company. You can bet whenever they release a laptop in January or announce it, I can tell you by September it's going to be refreshed. They're very good, and that's a pain. No one likes to buy a $2,000 or $3,000 laptop only to have 6-7 months later, oh, we put the new processor in there. On the other hand, a lot of people say that. People wish Microsoft sometimes was a little bit more responsive in terms of throwing the latest hardware in there. So it's a catch-22. Razer's on the side though of always refreshing as soon as they can. This week was super interesting. They announced the Razer Book 13. And I found this cool because for years, Razer laptops have been sort of the go-to. If you're switching from Apple, people would be like, check out the Razers, the Razer Blades, because they kind of do look a little bit like the MacBooks. They took the same industrial design and quality and just try to bring it to PC. They've done their own twist on things, improved things over the years. They recently redesigned the Blade series. That's more square now, and I actually really like it a lot. But they were always primarily gaming laptops, which was a weird recommendation. If you're coming from a Mac, which is not a gaming one, it's buy this thing. It's like, well, why is the screen 16:9? Why does it do this? Why is the keyboard glow? And why does it have snakes on it that light up? And like, oh, it's a gaming laptop. It's a nice one. I will say, Surface has sort of taken the bite out of that a little bit.
Yeah.
Now that's another good option. HP has their Spectre series, which are also really good options. But I think for years, Razer's been hearing, why not make a non-gaming laptop? Razer Blade Stealth 13 kind of went into that direction, although now it's been going back to gaming as they were able to add a powerful NVIDIA GPU to it. So the Razer Book 13, and I suspect we'll see a Razer Book 15 sometime in 2021, because I feel like this is going to be a series of devices. And heck, they may even do a Book 17 if there's demand. I'm, by the way, wrapping up my XPS 17 review finally, so I have 17 in my head. But this laptop is awesome looking. I haven't tried it myself. I will be getting one in very soon, though, and I will do a quick review. I promise Razer I'm going to do a quick review on this one. And I've said in the past, I tend to review things immediately when I really like it and I'm really interested in it. So I'm just biased that way. But you can also imagine the things I review are things I use, right? Or I'd like to use. So let's go through the specs here, because this is a fascinating device. It's first of all, it comes in mercury white. So they got away from the black. Mercury white is awesome. It's kind of like a silver white. It's nice. Doesn't show fingerprints.
Hides fingerprints. That's one of the biggest problems I had with the Razers, because they're matte black metal.
Oh, they get so greasy.
Yeah.
It's just, it drives me nuts. Like, yeah, D-Brand, I'm sure, enjoys having those laptops. This you won't have the problem with. It does have a white keyboard, but that has Chroma RGB per key lighting on it, which is funny because the Blade Stealth doesn't even have that. Blade Stealth has zone RGB, so you can change all the colors at once. This has per key, which means you can make the Windows key green, you can make your function keys blue, or if you just want to go old school, just make them all white, and it's just a normal looking laptop, right? So it's up to you. You can control all that stuff. You can also make them look like waves and rainbows and have it moving around if that's your thing. I find it distracting. Although it's on my current Razer keyboard, so maybe I shouldn't talk. The cool thing about this is they're using a 13.4-inch 16:10 display, which as soon as they said that, like, you guys did it. You nailed it. Exactly. Because, I'm a huge fan of 16:10 and 3:2. I get why Razer would resist doing that to the Blade series.
Because of gaming.
Because they're gaming laptops, and that aspect ratio is not ideal for gaming. It's not bad, but most games, especially older ones, are formatted for 16:9. So I get why they would resist that. So what they did was they just made a new laptop line and go, okay, now we can do 16:10, which was so smart. And they made what they're arguing are the thinnest bezels on any 13.4-inch laptop.
They look pretty thin.
Yeah, and we're talking thin on all four sides, like that. The bottom of the display basically goes right to the bottom of where the keyboard deck meets. It looks fantastic. My hunch is they're sourcing the same sharp IGZO display that Dell uses in the XPS 13. For one, it's 13:4, it's 16:10. That's what Dell uses. It also has the anti-reflective layer on it. Again, beautiful. Huge fan of this. Dell. This is why I like Dell a lot. They've been doing this on their displays, and they're freaking so good. And the Sharp IGZO technology is my favorite display technology. It's the best of what OLED is capable of doing, but also the best of LCD, and kind of merges those into their own kind of tech. So you get 3 screen options: full HD, non-touch, and I believe that's matte. So if you just want straight up matte, non-glossy, that's the cheapest version. That starts at $1,200. Then you have full HD with touch, and that's anti-reflective. And then you can go all the way up to UHD plus, which is 3840 by 2400, also with touch, and that's basically 4K at that point. Gorilla Glass 6, as I mentioned, anti-reflective. So awesome looking display. They do have a 720p webcam on top, and it has
facial
with
recognition.
IR.
Yeah,
yes.
I love
Razer
that.
got on board with IR. I think the camera will probably be not great because
Sure.
720p microcams are just not very good. It'll get the job done, but having Windows IR is going to be awesome for logging in. And I know that's a requirement for a Zac computer
Yes. Yes, it is.
to have that. So the other big thing about this, because up to this point I'm describing a really nice Ultrabook, this ships with a 28-watt Intel Core
Wow.
11th Gen series processor. For reference, almost all Ultrabooks in the 13-inch range are 15-watt chips.
Mm-hmm.
This is 28. This is what Apple's been using. So this is going to be significantly more powerful. And to match that, this has vapor chamber cooling, which if you're a gamer, you know that most gaming laptops and high performance devices go with vapor chamber. It's better for distributing heat. It's also more expensive. Usually has copper piping and everything. They do have a Core i5 version. That's going to be the full HD non-touch. That's that entry-level $1,200 one. But it's a Core i7 1165G7, if you really want to know the number, for the full HD touch and 4K touch. And that goes up to 4.7 gigahertz. It's that's a powerful chip
Yeah.
to have in this size device. Graphics, no surprise, no discrete NVIDIA graphics. You want that? Blade Stealth.
Yeah.
That has a 1650 in there. Go get that one. This does have Intel Iris Xe though, so it's going to be pretty good GPU.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm testing the XPS 13 now, which has the 15-watt 11th gen and Iris Xe in it. It makes a difference. I told you last week, this is the first time I'm using a laptop, and I'm like, this feels faster. It actually does. Of course, you get 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, up to 512 gigs of SSD. You can use an upgrade to 2 terabytes. Ports. Here's another thing that separates this from every other device. XPS 13, one of my favorite laptops, but it has 2 USB Type-C ports. All right, that's fine, but you may need a dongle, right? This, though, you get a micro SD card reader. I can't remember the last time I saw that 13, right? It has a full HDMI 2.0 port. That's cool. I mean, nice. I actually like using HDMI. When I travel, I use HDMI to plug to my TV and I stream movies and stuff. It has 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports. So that's full Thunderbolt 4 on both of them. And that's also where you'll charge. And it has, I made a mistake in the specs there. That's a shame. It has a 1X USB Type A port. I have Type C for some reason. I'll change that now. So it has a legacy 3.2 port. And that's actually a fast Type A port. So that's actually kind of cool.
But those ports do mean it's not a thin device. I've looked at the renders and stuff. It's definitely not Ultrabook thin. I think it's... How thin is it? How thick is it exactly? Have you got the measurements there?
I do. Give me a second. Just refresh.
I think it's thicker than, say, a HP Spectre or a Dell XPS for sure.
Probably. It should be 11.6 millimeters. 0.06 inches.
It's a half an inch.
And 15.15 millimeters.
Yeah, 15 millimeters is thicker than a lot of Ultrabooks. But then again, you are getting a 28-watt processor and a full-size HDMI port.
And this is a very squared-looking device.
Yes, it's very boxy, right?
It doesn't taper. Like, that's how a lot of laptops kind of get around that. They taper edges and all this. So this is very, boxy, kind of like a MacBook in a lot of ways. I actually really like this design. It's similar to the Blade Stealth, but it is smaller. It has a smaller footprint than the Blade Stealth in some of the dimensions, which is kind of cool. Yeah. It does have a pretty good sized battery life. And that gets into it weighs up to 3.1 pounds or 1.4 kilograms. So it's not heavy, actually. It has Wi-Fi 6, of course, Bluetooth 5.0, 5.1. It has 2 speakers on the top deck that face upward. And those are preamps, THX spatial audio. So this is going to be good audio. And listen, you put the speakers on the top deck. I'm a fan of that. It has a giant precision trackpad. And this is Intel Evo certified. We haven't talked about Evo too much on here. It's like Project Athena version 2. This is a program. It's a certification that you need to get. You'll see laptops that'll have an Intel Evo sticker on them. And these laptops meet the requirements of Evo, which include things like having Wi-Fi 6. See, I actually have the list here. So you need to have 11th gen Intel, Wi-Fi 6, Xe graphics, far field microphones, Thunderbolt 4, and a big focus on battery life and performance specifically. It needs to wake from sleep in less than 1 second, which is an improvement. It has to have at least 9 or more hours of real-world battery life with laptops with a full HD display. 4 or more hours of battery life in a 30-minute charge that you get from charging. So it has to have like support fast charging, basically. And there's actually more to it than that. But basically what they're saying here, they're rated the battery life as 14 hours for the full HD model and 11 hours for the 4K model. That's probably estimated. I imagine that 4K model probably gets you 7 hours. And I imagine the full HD model is probably going to get you closer to 9 hours. Of course, I'll have to test that, but that's still very good battery life. So this is, you can pre-order it now. I will be reviewing it, so don't, put your money down if you want to see what I have to say about it. That review should probably be out in the next, I'm hoping 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. I don't normally get that excited about laptops, or I do every once in a while. This one I'm generally excited about. I think this is an awesome competitor to the XPS 13, but it offers some clear, different features than that device. And so it goes up to $2,000. That's the top of the line. Core i7, 16 gigs, 512 gigs of storage, which is not cheap, but that's also not
like outrageous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not crazy expensive for what they're offering. So, yeah, I'm very excited about this device. I think it kind of, especially when you see the display, go to Windows Central, check out the photos of it. Zach, I'm curious what you think about this.
My biggest issue with it is that they're still using the Razer snake logo on the back.
Yeah.
Why?
You're not the first person.
Why can't they do what HP does? HP has two logos. It has like the standard round one, and they have like the premium angled one that looks really cool. Why can't Razer have the standard sort of gaming one and then have like a really minimalist sort of not snake orientated logo and stick that on the front of it? Because I think like a angled R or like a special something like that, or a Z even because it's Razer with a Z. That would be cool, but they've decided to stick with their standard Razer snake logo, and I think it looks goofy when you pull that out in a meeting room and stuff. Everyone's got like a Dell or a HP or a Microsoft logo, and then here you are with your snake logo. It's like, yeah, okay.
To be fair, it doesn't glow. So
it doesn't glow. It's true. You
but
can cover it up.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is where dbrand comes in, right? Or whatever sticker company you want to use. And to be honest, you can get like a silver, matte white, glacier white kind of sticker and put over it, and it'll basically blend it in. But that is the only branding on this device, is that. Yeah. I get what you're saying. I feel like companies, though, they have an identification and a branding, and they're pretty proud of their three-snaked thing. It goes back to their legacy.
I guess Razer's not in a position where they can introduce a new ident and it be familiar, because HP's managed to do that, and even Dell doesn't do that, right? Dell's logo is the same across all of its laptops.
I could see them doing that down the road. You got a Razer Book 13, a Book 15, maybe a Book 15 Pro or something like that, right? Or even a Book 17. And once that brand is established, it's a couple of generations, it's successful, I could then see them bringing that in a little bit. I don't feel like there's a deal killer. I totally understand the complaint, though. And I know they hear about that a lot. But, yeah, it's kind of funny. Other than that, though, man.
It looks great. It does look, especially, I think the color as well, it makes it what it is. Like, wow, it's very striking looking, which I think is cool.
Yeah. And I'm just curious about the performance, of course, the battery life. I wish I had LTE, but again, I'm being I'm in the minority in that. Very few people need LTE. And I feel like as their Gen 1, that's fine, but look for that. Another Razer thing I want to talk about briefly. This is typically not an exciting topic, and I totally understand here. So I reviewed the Razer Isker gaming chair. It's actually right behind me right now. I've reviewed gaming chairs in the past. I was using the eWin for the last 3 years. It held up great, actually, no issues with it. But I always found I would get offers for reviews, and they're always kind of the same, right? Gaming chairs, they always look like that racing cockpit chair. And the difference was the pattern, the logo, the pillows that they put onto it, right? Other than that, though, it was just like, all right, it's more the same. Secret Lab is a company I hadn't really heard of before, but they make more premium ones. Jez Corden just reviewed was it World of Warcraft model? Because they have like the covers that you can put on it and stuff like that. And they're pretty highly reviewed. So the reason I took this offer from Razer to review this chair was because I knew, one, the quality was going to be different. And sure enough, the stitching is just blows away my Ewin, right? It's got cross stitching in it, and it's got green, awesome stitching. It's just a higher quality. It's still PU leather, which is good for an environment. But I get some people don't feel like that's as good as genuine leather. That's fair, but it keeps the price down too. But the secret to this chair is it has this awesome lumbar support, which is a big deal. And you see gaming chairs have like a little pillow for your lower back, because your back, when you sit down, you're not completely a 90-degree angle, and our backs curve, and we tend to hunch over with our shoulders and have that space behind our back. And so they try to do support. This, though, is a fully articulating. It's not even, it's kind of padded, but it's a hard pad that kind of comes out, and it has a lever on the side. It goes up to, I think, 26 degrees. It comes out. You can adjust how much you want it to. And it completely just pushes your lower back and gives you just awesome support. That was completely unmatched by using a pillow. This doesn't collapse. It's firm. It actually maintains its form. It's almost like someone had two hands behind your lower back. It just held it there. And then the head pillow is that kind of like memory foam, they call it, with a nice velvet thing. And it hits the base of your skull perfectly. And then, of course, it has the 4D armrest, which basically 4D means they go up, down, side to side, in and out, and slide back and forth. And when you go into this like full position with your elbows on the armrest and your head back and this lumbar support, I felt like I was perfectly cradled. So when I would move my finger...
Did you feel like the Emperor on the Death Star as you turned around in that chair?
It was cool. It was cool writing the review, because the only thing I moved were my fingers. By that, I mean, when you're in a chair, you're using a lot of auxiliary muscles to actually maintain your posture and hold yourself up.
Yeah.
But the way this chair was designed, I felt like I was perfectly cradled at the elbows, the back of the head, and my lower back. And I just felt like all I was doing was moving my fingers. And I was just like, I could just sit here forever. And for gamers, developers, programmers, people who write, if you're sitting all day, of course, I'm right now using my standing part of the desk, which I prefer most of the time. But when I want to game, if I want to sit down and really focus on writing, I will lower the desk, and that's when I use the chair. Listen, if you sit for hours a day in front of the computer, I told my patients back when I was a sleep technologist years ago, the same thing. I'm like, when you buy a bed, buy a good bed. Don't I know there are thousands of dollars, but you spend a third of your life sleeping. Your whole existence, 1/3 is you're asleep. Be comfortable when you're doing that. Get a good night's sleep. Because I always laugh. I'm like, could you imagine being 80 and being like, man, I had a good life, but I really messed up that sleeping part. I just cheaped out. It's like, I don't need a bed. So a third of my life, I just screwed up. And I'm like, it makes a big difference, because getting a good night's sleep matters for everything, whether it's just your health, your mental status. Everything is a cascading effect from sleep. So I was like, get a good bed. Don't cheap out, and replace your bed every 10 to 15 years. I feel the same way about chairs for computers. If you're sitting down for 5, 6, 8, 10 hours a day, don't get a cheap chair. Get one with that's quality, that's going to last, but also get one that has proper ergonomics. And this is why office chairs actually can get into the $3,000 range and even more, because they're just made out of these super light materials, and they're all, So bottom line, I'm really happy with this chair. I'm so happy with it. Secret Lab was like, hey, you tried that one, but have you tried ours? And I've seen their stuff, but they don't have the same lumbar support. They got the pillow thing. And I'm like, they're probably good. I'm not saying that, but I'm just not interested at this point. I'm like, I'm kind of done with gaming chairs at this point. I don't know how this gets improved outside of, and Razer joked about this, about adding chroma RGB to it.
Does it?
Although
does it have the Razer logo obvious on it?
Yeah, it has. It's not so obvious. Well, the pillow says Razer.
Oh, does it?
On it. And then there's the snake logo, and then of course on the base of the chair it says "For Gamers by Gamers." So
nice.
it's very Razer, but it's black with green. It looks kind of cool. I could see them making a more expensive version.
How much is the chair?
$499.
Only $500 dollars? $500. Yeah. Wow, I was expecting 1,000 plus based on everything there. Jeez.
No, it's a premium gaming chair, but it's not priced out of the
No,
competition.
yeah, that's great.
Um, I would like to see them, and I don't doubt they may try to put in HyperSense. That's Razer's basically force feedback system. I have their headphones that have it, which are really awesome. I love it when I play on my Xbox. Um, so that the chair vibrates when you're
Mm,
playing games. I actually, they had a demo chair like that like a year or two ago at CES,
yeah.
but when you're sitting in it and that with the headphones and everything vibrating when you're, it's like it's an immersive experience. It's pretty wild. So I could see them doing that in a different version. But that's my rant about a chair, which I never thought I would have to do before. But there you go. Go check out my review. I'll drop the link into the comments now for people who want to see what I'm talking about. All right, let's move on to the Surface Duo keyboard. Zach, what happened with the keyboard this week, and why is it kind of
It
cool?
broke and nobody could type on their
Eh,
duos. It was incredible. No. So this week, Microsoft released an update that added support for thumb typing while spanned. So one of the big requests people had on the Surface Duo is I want to be able to type with both thumbs whilst using both screens at once. And up until this week, you couldn't do that. If you tried to do that, the app would just either dock the full keyboard to the left screen or the right screen, but it wouldn't split the keyboard and span it across both screens. Now it does, and it works surprisingly well. I tried it yesterday, and I was sort of typing to Dan, and unfortunately, you have to span the app you're in for it to work. It won't work if you're using two apps for some reason. But if you span the app you're in, say I was in Telegram and I tapped into the text field, I initiated the split mode for the thumb keyboard, and it went across both screens. So on the left screen, I had half the keyboard on the far left of the keyboard, and then on the right screen, I had the other half of the keyboard docked in the far right corner, and I was able to type, and it felt really natural, really nice. I wasn't like slowly typing because I had the whole keyboard on one side, and it worked. And I would love to see them bring this to multiple apps as well, so you can just run, have two apps side by side or whatever, and still type with both hands. But yeah, it's very comfortable. I don't know if you've tried it, Dan, but if you have, I think you can agree.
Yeah, no, it's the ideal typing. I mean,
Yeah,
I've been using my thumb swiping on the right side. It's
right, me
my
too.
main way I type on this. When I want to do an email, I'll switch to the compose mode, which is
Yeah,
the Nintendo DS kind of style. But it's a bit of a stretch
yeah,
using, and that has a thumb keyboard too already, a split keyboard. It's a bit of a stretch. This though feels pretty natural to use, and I like it. There are some still UX issues. For one, you have to have the app
yeah.
spans. Your text entry is only on one side.
Hmm.
It's usually the right side. And then you have like the word recommendations, and it's just like it's a little, you're typing with two, but you're looking on one side, so it's a little kind of weird.
Yeah,
Uh, but it's a great start. Um, and yeah, something like in Telegram, which we use a lot internally, it doesn't work great on, right?
no,
Because you would have to span Telegram, and Telegram doesn't span very well. It does. It's very wide, and you have the seam going down the
yeah,
middle, and there's no like UI that adjusts around that. So then when you go to type, you're typing through the hinge,
hmm,
and it's just not an ideal experience. But these are the growing pains with a dual screen
yeah.
device. But I thought it was great. I thought, something we've asked for. Microsoft has told me they were working on this, uh, and now it's in the SwiftKey beta. You have to span the app and then go to the little settings above the keyboard
Hmm.
and enable the thumb keyboard to make it happen.
Yeah.
Um,
It's just good
but
to see that things are progressing slowly but surely in the Duo. I've also heard that in regards to the Microsoft launcher in an upcoming update, possibly even the next one, I don't know. They'll be re-enabling the ability to use screen time in the Microsoft Launcher. For those who've used Microsoft Launcher on non-Surface Duo phones, you'll know that Microsoft Launcher actually has a really nice built-in screen time feature that has like a really cool graph that tells you how many times you're using your phone, how many times you're unlocking it and stuff, and has like a 7-day overview. That's finally coming to the Surface Duo, and it will support spanning. So like you can click on the screen time UI and it'll pull up on one screen, then you can span it. Then on the left screen you'll have your last 24 hours, and on the right screen you'll have your 7-day overview. And I'm excited for that. I really enjoyed the screen time feature on other phones, and now it's coming to the Surface Duo's version of Microsoft Launcher as well.
that's pretty good. Yeah, it's still a fun device to use. It's still my
Yeah.
main phone, of course. Um, but yeah, hopefully we'll see more with Duo. I still want to see more apps that span. Someone's asking about Android 11. We have no ETA
No.
on that. We don't expect it till early next year. I think with the holiday coming up, the election right now, Microsoft tends to slow down this time of year for
Yeah.
obvious reasons. Same reason a lot of us start to slow down, although I have a lot of reviews to get through, so that's not necessarily true. But yeah, we'll continue to follow the Duo, and we do expect the monthly security patch and bug fix update to come out either today,
Probably Monday, I
probably
think.
Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we did mention last week, Launcher has been getting updated a lot through the store, both beta and the official version.
Mm-hmm.
And my observation with the Launcher is it's both has improved. It's way more
Oh
stable.
yeah.
It's more smooth, the animations. Um, they've also reduced its memory footprint. If you go back to my review of Duo, I'd say often you'd go check the memory and it'd be like 760 megabytes left out of 6 gigs.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody's like, that's why you need 8,
Yeah.
On average now, I'm seeing 2 gigs of free RAM on my
Nice.
device, even after running it all day and stuff like that. So, and part of that too, although I do use a RAM cleaner once in a while, but it's still a change. So I think they're improving the memory usage, which is in turn helping. Because the funny thing is, if you install third-party launchers, which you can, they just generally suck because they're not optimized for dual screens. But you'll notice their performance actually tends to be very good. It's like, oh, this feels way quicker. And I think it's because they're still optimizing the code for Duo and the launcher. And that's what we're seeing, which is why it's starting to feel a little bit lighter, a little bit more nimble. Still have work to do, but yeah, you bring back changeable icons, customizable icons. That'll be a nice thing to have. So,
This week I dropped my Duo for the first time, but I had a bumper on it, so it was okay. This bumper that
makes a
flew
difference.
6,000 miles saved my Duo, so I'm very happy.
There you go. Yeah, I'm still rocking my Star Wars.
Nice.
But I'm getting bored of it. I kind of miss. Wait, did you take your skin off?
I have it on the back still, but I wasn't happy with how I applied it on the front. It was like, it wasn't perfect, and I was like, I'm taking it off.
Yeah, I've had ability, like I've been able to reapply debrands, especially on the Duo.
Listen, Dan, it's gone. It's too late.
Okay, just saying. Yeah, I'm thinking about. I kind of missed the glass and the logo. So.
Yeah. The glass is nice. The only problem I have with the glass is that it gets so fingerprinty. Even on the white one, I know you can't really see it normally, but if you shine it in the correct angle in some light,
you get fingerprints on the logo too.
Yeah. I wish they'd use frosted glass, but oh well.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Let's talk a little bit finally with the Xbox Series X and Series S reviews went live this week. I've been out of the loop on this. I'm not a hardcore gamer. I just know the new Xboxes are faster.
They're coming soon.
What else do I need to know about them? And specifically, Zach actually has the Series X.
Yes.
So what can you share?
So essentially, the Series X is the greatest console on the planet right now, and that is. I mean, let's be real. I mean, if you look at the PS5 and the Series X on paper, the Xbox Series X does come out on top. Sure, the PS5 has a faster SSD, but let's be real. I don't know how that makes that a better console than the PS5, than the Series X from a hardware perspective. I know the games and stuff, that's a whole different story, but from hardware alone, the Xbox Series X is the most powerful. And I think the best bang for your buck console you can get right now. 4K 60 or even 4K 120 in some instances, depending on the game. It's super fast SSD. Things are loading instantly, more or less. It's a world of difference compared to the Xbox One X and the One Series in general. Including the Series S. The Series S was also reviewed. I don't have one, but Jez and Matt on our Xbox team do, and they've reviewed theirs, and they say, yeah, this is a great option for those who don't have a 4K TV or are playing on like a 2K monitor or whatever. This does, 1080p 60 easily, but it's got the same fast SSD and the same quick resume features and stuff, so it's instant, just like the Series X. Just it doesn't output as high resolution, which is, I think, fine for a lot of people. A lot of people don't need 4K gaming. I think the Series X will be a great bedroom Xbox, and obviously the Series X will be for the living room or for where your master TV is. That has all the bells and whistles. I've been playing a lot of Watch Dogs Legion on my Series X, although I think it's technically the backwards compatible version since the Series X patch isn't out for it yet, I don't think. But the games look beautiful. The game has run just as if it was native. That it had quick load times. I've had no issues playing it whatsoever. I know some people were saying that Legion on this One X was crashing and stuff. I didn't have that problem on the Series X. I finished the whole game just fine. I've been playing a bit of Call of Duty and Halo Master Chief Collection as well. Those are supposed to be getting Series X updates. That's the problem with this review period. A lot of the games that reviewers could test weren't actually optimized for Series X yet. I think Dirt 5... Actually, I don't think Dirt 5 was. I could be wrong about that. But most of the games we were able to test weren't technically Series X optimized. They were just enhanced because they were using the One X version, but with whatever the Series X is able to do to sort of enhance those as best as it can. And I think it's great. None of my games have had issues. They've all run just fine. I don't play Kinect games, so I didn't have an issue with that. So my written review was from the perspective of somebody who bought into the Xbox One's TV vision, because Matt and Jez were writing the actual gaming review, so I left them to do that. So there's no point in me writing another review on top of that. So I decided to pivot my review to be more, can you use the Series X just like you used your Xbox One, as in a cable TV box? And the answer is no. Not even if you use the Xbox One TV antenna, which was sold in select markets. There was like a USB thing you could plug in and then plug it in aerial and have over-the-air TV on the Xbox One. That doesn't work on the Series X either, because the One Guide app, the app that actually dealt with those protocols and handled the TV guide and actually just receiving TV, is gone on the Series X and S. It's not an app you can install from the Microsoft Store. It's just outright gone. And I doubt it will come back, which is a shame, because for those who did have, say, the OTA antennas and whatnot, the Series X and S could very easily still act as a TV box if Microsoft allowed it. I get not having the HDMI in pass-through. That I understand being removed. You can't use a cable box and plug it into the Xbox anymore. That's definitely gone. But also removing the ability to plug in the Xbox One antenna USB thing is kind of a kick in the backside. It's like, come on, Microsoft, you could have at least left that around. And I think the reason they got rid of it is because I think they're planning to kill the One Guide stuff at some point. Once the Xbox One starts dying down and whatever, I think they will be like, we're retiring One Guide, and that's all disappearing. Because the Series X and S is all about the games. They were burnt pretty hard when they tried to make the Xbox more than about games. And so they didn't want to risk it again for a second time. And they've just said, this is all about games. Games, games, games. And let's be real, it does the games amazing. It is, I think, the best games console out there right now. And it does, I mean, there are still third-party video apps. You can still download things like Prime Video, Netflix, Hulu, HBO, whatever you use. And they run better on the Series X. You click on them, they launch. They're pretty much instant at this point. Whereas on the One X or the previous generation, you'd click on it and it'd load. You'd see the splash screen. It'd be there for 5 to 10 seconds. That's gone. It's more or less instant now. And that makes a big difference, in my opinion. The dashboard's faster. Just getting to your apps and your games is just quicker. And I actually genuinely think this is a really, really good console. Especially for the price, $500 for 4K gaming is at a constant 60 or even more, right? The Xbox One X could do 4K 60, but it wasn't always 4K 60. It was usually struggling to hit 60. This is the baseline is 4K 60 on the Series X, and it just only goes up from there. So this is great. I think it's fantastic. And I think most reviews agree with my quick review there as well.
Yeah, I got to look to see if. I don't think my TV support 120 hertz, but I could be wrong on that.
Did I get mine before or after yours? Because mine doesn't support 4K 120. Not at 4K. Mine does 4K. Mine does 1080 120 or 4K 60. And mine's the 2018 model, I think.
I'm probably in the same boat.
Yeah. I think 2019 was the first, or maybe even this year was the first to do 4K 120, which is fine. Yeah, no, right.
I got to dump the TV.
Yeah, so I
like garbage in front of my house with a big 65-inch TV.
I said to my girlfriend, I was like, you know what this means, right? We need a new TV. And she looked at me and she went, no, we don't. I was like, yeah, but we do. I'm missing out on 60 extra hertz here. What's going on?
She says that, but then if you get the larger one, she's not going to complain. Yeah, that's the important part.
Fine.
I still want to get the 75-inch. Yeah. But then I'm going to go a 75-inch, 120 hertz.
I've been eyeing up the 65-inch OLED, this year's OLED from LG. The question I have is, should I get another OLED or should I go with whatever the other tech they've got now?
Good question. Yeah, good question. So, I have an LG upstairs, and we use that most of the time just because it's more convenient. That's OLED. Yeah. Then I have the Samsung downstairs, which is bigger, 65-inch.
QLED, right?
But it's a QLED. Here's a great question. I would buy QLED over
that's what OLED. I'm thinking. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. OLED is it's exactly what it is. It's like, the blacks are inky black and the contrast is ridiculous. But there's something about it. It's a little too there's something about it I just don't care for as much, whereas I find QLED a little bit more natural. I'm pretty positive I could adjust my settings and kind of get around some of that, but I've been kind of more happy with Samsung's QLED than
I
OLED.
mean,
So
even LG has a flagship line now that isn't OLED. I think it's, I want to say Quantum Dot. Maybe that's Samsung.
yeah,
But yeah,
I think
they have a non-LG technology they use now in some of their TVs, and it's apparently really great, and especially they aim it specifically for gamers as well. Yeah, I need to do my research, man. The TV market has changed a lot in the last 2 years. Like 2 years ago,
very
it was get OLED. OLED is the way
very
to go,
intense, right?
but not anymore.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot. Then there's the Dolby Vision
Yeah,
versus HDR10.
yeah,
Now they have
jeez.
HDR10 plus, and Dolby Atmos support, and how much smart TV stuff you want in there. We have recommendations for these on Windows Central. If you want more information, I always recommend this. My favorite site, Ratings, RTINGS. They do some of the most in-depth TV reviews I've seen, but they also have a very good back-end system for sorting based on the features you're really interested in.
Mm.
So they have like TVs that they recommend for gaming. Like if you're into gaming because you want that fast refresh rate, right? That's an issue compared to displays, gaming displays. They have that ability to show you what the best gaming display is or gaming TV. And they do things that I'm really interested in. Said it before, anti-reflection is a huge thing for me. I hate glare. So TVs vary on how well
Yeah.
they have anti-reflective abilities. Samsung's very good. And they actually do, like they show you the photos, looking at glare and different angles. And you can do my favorite thing, which is pick 2 or 3 TVs, pick them and then compare. And you can see then what the photos look like versus which one you're happy with. So if you're want following this discussion and are interested in TV, I suggest them. Again, Ratings, RTINGS, not affiliated in any way, but they just do quality, consistent work, which is what I
Yeah.
love. So, well, I think that about does it. I do have a 1X Series X, sorry, that's supposed to ship from Amazon. Completely forgot about it. I will also mention I did order the iPhone 12 mini today,
You
so
did,
I'll have
yeah.
that hopefully by next Friday. It was funny because Zach pinged me this morning. He's like, "Hey, did you order the iPhone 12 mini?" I was like, "Oh, I completely forgot." Um, Partly because I'm not on social media right now. I'm not on Twitter, so
Yeah.
I miss everybody talking about this stuff. So I knew it was Friday at 8 a.m., but I just forgot. That said, I also told Zach, I'm like, there was no way I was going to get up at 8 a.m. to order an iPhone. I'm a 9 to 10 a.m. kind of guy. Not going to do that. So, but I did order the blue, the 64 gig, because I'm happy with 64 gig. That's all I actually need.
Hmm.
Um, so that'll be here next Friday. I'm still using the Duo as my main phone, of course. I'm looking to possibly use, well, first of all, I'm replacing the iPhone 11 with the 12 mini.
You trade
So
in?
I'm just exchanging it and trading in. Um, but I'm looking to have that as sort of my backup phone when I travel, if that ever happens again. That's my good camera. That's my 5G phone, right? But it's so tiny and small. It's something I could just throw in my jacket and
Yeah.
I pocket and not really think about it. Whereas my Duo, it's funny, and I'm not like bluffing here. So in front of me, I have the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, which I still use. It's on my Mint Mobile chip, which works very well with it actually. Um, and I do play with it a lot, right? The camera is fun on it, the display is amazing. And so I use both. And I often have them both by the couch, but I do go for the Duo more often
Hmm.
when I want to read the news, when I was doing Twitter stuff, when I'm opening my emails, because there's something about the not just having dual screens, but that wider display that I just like. Um, it's a thing. Like once you switch to dual screens, it's kind of a thing. That's not to say it's for everybody, of course, but
Yeah.
I'll share some thoughts quickly. I guess let's do our thing of the week. We've been trying to do this. It's just our fun. Zach, your thing of the week is going to be kind of my thing of the week partly because I don't have a main one,
Sure.
but share yours
So
first.
mine is another TV show recommendation. This show's not a new one, so this isn't like Mandalorian stuff. This show actually aired, I want to say last year or early this year, maybe. I can't remember now. It was called Years and Years. It was a limited series, so I don't think there's any series 2 coming. It's a complete story beginning to end. And it's about just following a family really through the years. I think it starts in 2019, and every episode jumps, a few years into the future, and it's this family sort of dealing with the world around them, politics, banking, all of that stuff. Like just something terrible sort of happens at the beginning of the show. I won't spoil it, and then you just follow this family. The family ages, grows up, people die, and it's just them dealing with what life throws at them, and it's really good and kind of timely, sort of in a weird way, because of the election in the US right now. I don't want to worry people.
It captures. So, Zach recommended this, and I started watching it too, and it really captures the feeling that a lot of people have, regardless of your politics and everything, which is that the world is a little bit chaotic right now.
Yeah,
there's a lot that's happening, different power shifts, extreme ideologies coming out. And it kind of captures that same feeling that everything's a little chaotic, not great.
Yeah.
We're, of course, enjoying our little moments here and there with friends and family.
Yeah.
And this is a very friends and family show. But stuff happening in the background has dramatic impacts on the
people.
Paths that people take.
Yeah.
There's
this great bit in the first episode where he's like, but the world's mad. Like 10 years ago, I didn't think about politics. Politics was boring. And I thought to myself, absolutely. I didn't care about politics until 2016. That's when I started caring about politics. That's funny enough, when Trump became president and Brexit happened and all of this craziness. It's like, but until then, I did not give a monkeys about politics. And I think this show's just really good at sort of echoing what people are thinking right now, and it dramatizes it, of course. Like, it's very dramatic and like crazy things happen in the show. But it's a really good show, I think.
Yeah, I was a political science major in college, so I always been thinking about politics.
Yeah, right,
That said, I get tired of politics. I don't have, my Twitter stream isn't just not constant. I get burnt out from it because I have my philosophy, my theories on politics, which I'm more than willing to share sometime. But it's not something that is not a topic / field I like to get constantly involved with.
Yeah, I burn out. I've muted a lot of political related tweets. Like I muted Trump, I muted Brexit a while ago now, because I don't want it on my timeline. And also, I don't want to talk about it on Twitter. Like I realize I shouldn't buy into the whole stick to your lane, talk about tech, because I don't agree with that at all. But at the same time, I don't want to get involved in any of that, because it's just I'm not an expert. I live my life. I think how I think, and that's fine.
That's the problem. And Jez Corden kind of does this a little bit. Jez is he's part of that generation which gets all his news and info via like Twitter and social networks. Mm-hmm. So everything's the headline, the screenshot. But there's rarely, I don't watch pundits on TV. I sometimes read editorials, but I pick sources all over the spectrum, and I read the articles. I read the original research, sometimes even from research journals on politics. And then I form my own opinions. I don't really need to hear other people's opinions all the time on politics. And I really don't care about other people's opinions. Like, if I want to hear Schmo's thoughts on stuff, I don't care. I have my thoughts. I'll do my own reading and come to that. But I'm a firm believer also in reading the things that you don't agree with. You got to know what the other side is thinking and saying. If you're even going to think for a second, you're going to have a rebuttal to their position, you got to understand where they're coming from and what they're thinking. So I'm a big fan of doing that. But most people don't. And most people have a very poor ability to critically read something. This is why when you go into grad school, the GREs, part of it is critical reading. The ability to go through an article, read it, then be able to point out the good points, but also the criticisms of it is such a crucial skill. And most people, I think, are not trained in this. It's a skill you got to learn. But that's a whole separate thing. So I like the show. It's good. My girlfriend doesn't care for it too much. And partly because I think the idea is brilliant. I really do agree with you there. I think it's timely. But the execution sometimes leaves me wanting. I hate sometimes the music, I'm going to do the drum. I can't do the drumming thing because I have RTX voice on, but the double bass drumming that's going on, and they do this kind of montage scene. They do this. It's a repeating theme throughout the show a little bit. Yeah. Some of the dramatization is just a little corny for me. I'm like, oh, okay.
It's a British show, so you should expect some of that. And it's
Yeah,
written by Russell T Davies, who wrote the first few seasons of Doctor Who when it returned. So it's a bit camp here and there and all of that, but
right.
I think
Yeah,
the premise is very good. And if you can get past
yeah,
that sort of slight campiness, I think it's a great show.
yeah. I agree. Like I said, I think the overall idea is cool. I just wish it wasn't as campy. But I've also watched shows before where I've like not liked a single character. I hate all the characters. And sometimes that is the show. That is
Yeah. Oh
what it's
yeah.
supposed to be. But it makes it hard because sometimes you always want to identify with the character. Like, yeah, I agree with that guy. That guy's cool. But yeah, sometimes on these shows you watch them and you're just like, I don't like anybody. So that's not something I rule out. But yeah, I definitely recommend for those in the United States, since you're not in the UK, you can watch this on HBO Max.
Right.
So it is there.
Yeah, and in the UK it's on BBC One. It was. I shouldn't be on BBC iPlayer and stuff.
Yeah. So I think that HBO Max is turning out to be it's worth the money between the HBO channels and show. But the new stuff that are coming out, the original series, I've actually been a fan of. I don't really have much of a. I'm kind of riding on Zach's coattails there because this week it's been just watching the news. Although tying into that, my kind of thing of the week has been vodka.
It's the news.
It's vodka. Yeah, could be the news. No, it's vodka martinis.
Nice.
It dawned on me, if you had to ask me what's Dan's drink, and most people I don't think would know this, would be vodka martinis.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and well, I mean, some of the shows we've been to, you've noticed I've ordered
Yeah,
martinis.
because I usually get like a vodka tonic or a vodka lemonade because it's just easy. Like it's just people know what it is. And it's easy, right?
Yeah, and you don't have to have a fancy glass.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is, it's my drink, but I only order it when I'm on business trips, like for the site. And it's partly because sometimes you'll go to events and they'll have a bar and so it's expensed, so it's like, all right, I'll take a vodka martini. And I get it with a twist because olives are gross. I wish I loved olives. I love olive oil. I'm okay with salt, but those two things together are just disgusting. And I'm really sad about that because I look at stuffed olives and I'm just like, those look delicious. They'll put garlic in them or blue cheese, but no, can't do the olives. But so finally this week I bought myself a martini glass. I got the shaker. I bought vermouth, which is all a vodka martini is vermouth and vodka. But I didn't even know where to buy vermouth. I presumed it was in a liquor store here, but like I didn't know where in the liquor store because I never bought it. But I've been making myself vodka martinis, and I couldn't be happier, honestly. It's not that I'm drinking a lot, very much into moderation, but just a single vodka martini at the end of the night has been very peaceful. And it's low carb. If you're on a keto diet,
Nice.
it's actually a good way to avoid carbs from beer. So it's kind of a healthy alcohol. It's not true. All alcohol is bad. I don't buy into the they tried selling that on us years ago, like alcohol, like 1 or 2 drinks a day could actually be good for the heart.
A glass of wine a night is good for you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. It's all nonsense. It's alcohol. Typically poison.
And it's funny, since we all got locked down and stuff and like no one really goes out anymore, like I don't drink at home. So I'll only ever drink out when I'm out with friends or at a bar or on a work trip, just like you. And we've not done none of that this year. So I really haven't had that much to drink this year, which is really weird.
I'm the opposite.
Really?
I love drinking at home.
Really? Yeah, I'm just not.
I don't go out to bars.
Yeah.
Like, not really. I mean, when I'm out with you guys or something like that, of course I will. But it's not something part of when I'm home. That's not part of my active life. I'll go to a tavern, have a beer or two, maybe. But here's the funny thing, because you mentioned that with the lockdown and not. I would typically have 2 to 3 drinks a night, like a couple beers, maybe a little expensive tequila or whiskey. But I actually got so bored doing that. I'm just basically kind of went cold turkey. Like I'll save it for a weekend or something. But that's how my brain works. It's just like, and plus I don't feel better the next day. When I wake up the next morning, I've never felt like, thank God I had that vodka last night because now I'm ready to write. And my brain is sharp as a tack.
Do you remember when we was in Germany and we raided the little mini fridge that they had in the thing, and it was the weirdest assortment of alcohols ever, and you went through most of it.
Yeah, there was that red stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. I don't know, but it was awful.
Was it Campari? I think it was
can't
Campari.
remember. It was so
Which
bad.
is something you never. It's always something you mix. So I just drank it. Because they were little bottles, mind you.
Yeah,
This isn't like a big
tiny.
bottle. It's a little, but like we had no alcohol in the room, and there was just like,
And there was
I
no
need
there was
something.
no internet that night as well, right? Because the
Right.
hotel internet went down. Oh my god, this is the worst thing ever.
Yeah. So yeah, I drank the Campari. I was like, I just need something to take the edge off. Yeah. So that's hopefully you enjoyed our thing of the week. So yeah, go watch Years and Years. Have yourself a vodka martini and enjoy the chaos of the world. All right. For those of you joining the podcast right now who are in our chat room, you are now free to ask us any random question you want, whether it's about a topic we covered on the podcast, we didn't cover on the podcast. If you just want to know about us, yeah, maybe we'll answer those. So fire those off. If you're listening to this podcast recorded, you do not get to hear that, but you can join us every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel where we have the live chat and live video, and you can have a lot of fun with us. Other than that, though, thanks for tuning in. You can follow me on Twitter at Daniel_Rubino, but I'm currently not able to access my account. So
Have they
if
gotten back
you
to
haven't
you
seen-
yet?
No, of course
Oh,
not. This is
goodness.
Twitter. I don't even care anymore. It's actually been nice, by the way,
Yeah.
not to be on Twitter this week. I've actually,
Oh yeah, this is the 1 week as well.
yeah, so it's been kind of a blessing in disguise. I'm not even that mad at this point. I'm sure I'll get it back eventually, but I don't really care anymore. But you can follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN, and he'll talk to you on Twitter. So other than that, though, as always, thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you next time. Be safe, wear a mask, and take care, everyone.
Awesome. So questions are coming already. Has there been internal talk about the Duo 2 and using the Microsoft logo as a notification badge display? I have not heard anything specific about that. No.
Multiple accounts support on Teams. I believe that was just this week talked about how that's in the works, but not coming this year. If I remember the summary of that article.
Any updates on Xbox console / cloud streaming for Windows? No, nothing specific. I don't know if they're working on a client specific to Windows or if they're just working on a PWA that you can run on top of Windows. I think that's more likely.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
I feel like, should we maintain an app or we'll just
Right.
do web browsing, which we already kind of have?
And if it works, right? If it works in the PWA, I'm not bothered. The PWA is native to ARM, right? So that's good.
Yep.
Will the apps feature on your phone support more phones in the near future? I own the Galaxy M31. I don't know. I think it's whatever One UI 2.5 supports. I think it is. So yeah. I mean, even the Surface Duo doesn't support it right now, and I don't know if they're ever going to bring it. I hope they do, but that remains to be seen.
When can we expect a Slim Series X Xbox? Hey, let them get these two out the door.
I'd say at least
God,
a year and a half, maybe 2 years from now.
Right. The issue is not so much that they don't want to do that. The fact is, the Series X is the way it is because of its thermals and its power. Like,
Yeah, and the fact that it has a disk drive.
yeah, I mean, it's right. So I don't know how much slimmer it would be if they removed the disk drive. I'm sure it might be a little bit slimmer,
Yeah.
but I really feel like that entire design is built around keeping it cool and the thermals around it. And I don't know if that radically changes just because you remove the disk drive. Like, in other words, I don't know if they can make the chassis that much smaller, restricting airflow, if that still gets them the same performance / reduced fan noise that they're trying to go for. That's an engineering challenge that they'll have to figure out. So I'm not sure. They may do like an all digital version and you can call it a Slim, but it just may be $50 cheaper, right? Which,
yeah.
that's
And I mean,
the
look, they do get to a point where they can slim this stuff down. Like the original Xbox One to the Xbox One S and then the Xbox
as the
One
technology
X.
improves.
Yeah, like they're night and day. And we'll get there eventually. But what, the One S and the One X came out 3 years into the Xbox One's life cycle. So yeah, like I would expect a new Xbox of some kind in 2 to 3 years' time, I think.
Will Microsoft offer Surface Pro X with a smaller screen size? Who knows?
I doubt it.
I was going to say, Zach, I assume hasn't heard that.
No.
I doubt it as well. because they have Surface Go already.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have to do like, how big is Go? 10.2 inch? Something like
10.5.
that? Like what do you go? Like you have to go between
11.
10.5 and 13 inch, so like 11 inch. I mean, they could. It really comes down to demand. We don't know how well Pro X is selling outside that it's sold well enough
To get a second one.
to get a second new colorway, new color options for the keyboard. But I'm not sure they're ready to push to another one. And personally, I'm okay with that. For me, I said before, the Pro X is perfect the way it is.
Any ideas if they'll release the keyboard with the pen charger for the Pro X or the Pro 7 and Pro 8? That's a great question. Technically, there's no reason why they couldn't,
Right.
unless the current Surface Pro connector doesn't output power, which I can't see how that's possible since it has to power a backlight anyway. Maybe it doesn't output enough power. I don't know.
Right. I was going to say that's the concern.
Right.
Not that they can't fix that. They made the Pro 8, but they would have to change something on the connector / board to
because the
enable
Pro
enough
X's
power.
connector is different. In fact, it's quite a bit different as
Yes.
well. Like I think the Pro standard uses like a 5-pin connector thing. The Pro X uses it's just in one of the sort of hook things, like just a couple of metal prod things that plugs into the bottom of it. So yeah, it is different.
How will Windows 10X act on a 2-in-1 with keyboard detached or ordinary tablets? Will it get dedicated tablet mode improvements? I feel like we're asked this every single week.
Yeah, and the answer is if you've ever used an Android tablet, I think it'll be like that. You'll have the desktop, you'll have the taskbar. If you swipe up, you'll get access to the start menu. I don't know if the start menu will go full screen. They have builds internally where it does and have builds where it doesn't. And I don't think we'll know until the product's done and it starts shipping. But it won't like drastically change like desktop does. Like desktop has a desktop mode, then it has the tablet mode, which is the full screen start and stuff. I'm not expecting that. Windows 10X is a full screen OS anyway, so apps do run in full screen even in desktop mode. If they're on a device with less than 13 inches of screen size. But yeah, like I do not expect the UX to be entirely different between when you're using it with a keyboard and when you're using it as a tablet. I think they'll be very similar, just a little bit more gesture based.
Any updates on Surface Laptop 4? That's a question for Zach. I think it's safe to say it's going to have 11th gen Intel.
Yeah, and
At least
Ryzen 4000.
Ryzen 4000.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've not heard anything specific. I have heard it may show up alongside the Pro 8 in January, but I've not been able to confirm that yet. So keep that to yourselves, I guess. But yeah, so it could be soon. But I'm not expecting any redesigns or anything. I think it will look like.
I was going to say, I could see that as also a mid-cycle refresh. That's how I would, by the way, think about these: the Pro 8 and the Laptop 4.
Mm-hmm.
Not new devices, mid-cycle refreshes, which is what the Pro X was, a mid-cycle refresh. Right?
The other reason why I think the Pro 8 might remain as the Pro 7's design is because of the pandemic. They may have planned to release the new design this year or when the Pro 8 comes out.
Do you think you'll call it the Pro 8?
I don't know. That's a great question. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Because I could totally see them calling it the Pro 7 with just
new price. Yeah, processor. Just refresh. Yeah, just new. Yeah, I agree. I think
7.5.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think maybe the pandemic affected those plans because, like I said, if they change the design, the whole accessory market has to adapt and stuff. And right now, I think doing that in everyone working from home and all of that stuff, I just think it's a little bit too much, and they don't want to rock the boat too much. So
you should just call it Surface Pro 7.5.
Yeah, 7.1.
Could you answer this question on any update on Sun Valley update?
No, it's literally been 1 week.
On any update?
It's been 1 week since I gave you that big scoop, and you already want updates. When is enough? No, I have nothing to share. Once I have like a juicy amount of info to share, I will share it.
Will Cloud PC offer numerous GPU options?
Don't know. These are questions we just don't know. Yeah,
this is like way too early.
I've seen your poll on Twitter on tablet use for Surface Pro users. Is there any reason why you did that, or just curiosity? Any news from Microsoft improving that? No, I was just curious, really. Like, I mean, I am hearing that there may be some tablet improvements with the Sun Valley stuff, but I don't know anything specific just yet. And I just wanted to know how often people use their Surface Pros as a tablet. And the answer is either every day or never. If you looked at the results of my poll, it was like 30% every day. Then it was like 12% sometimes, hardly ever, and then never. And then never was also 30%. So people either do or they don't. And yeah, I mean, I've had the Pro X since it came out in this a couple of weeks ago. Haven't detached the keyboard once, I don't think.
Yeah, I never do it.
Yeah.
I sometimes flip the keyboard around if I need to use the pen,
Right.
maybe to do something. The majority of the time, I'm flipping the keyboard back with the kickstand out and using what I call like movie mode, presentation mode.
Yeah.
Man, on the couch, throwing on YouTube, that 13-inch display, that keyboard flipped around.
I'm
Those
really
two front-facing speakers.
I'm really loving the Pro X. I think it might be a contender for one of the best. I still think the Surface laptop's the best, but I think the Pro 8. I keep calling it the Pro 8 now. The Pro X is up there.
That's what I said last year. Pro X was my favorite laptop of the year. At least my personal favorite. But.
So 10X won't support windowing. So what, as far as I understand it, is when they would I haven't seen this updated, but it's the last builds I checked weren't that long ago, and they still were full screen apps, even on like devices like the Surface with a keyboard and stuff. The last I heard is they were considering making it so devices with less than 13 inches of screen size would run apps in full screen mode because they have the data, and it turns out most people on a laptop with less than 13 inches of screen size run apps in full screen anyway. So why not just make it that way? Because it makes it easier for the user to manage windows. They can still do the spanning. They can still do split screen, 2 apps side by side and stuff if they need to. But just when you click on an app icon, it will launch full screen, and there's no way to sort of make it a window that you can move around. There's no cascading windows, I think is what they call it. But on a device with larger than 13 inches, then the option to have, an app window that can cascade and be moved around and stuff becomes available to the user, because on devices with screen sizes larger than 13 inches, Microsoft has the data. And actually, yes, in those cases, people actually cascade windows more often than not. So I think that's how it's going to be on Windows 10X. Maybe there'll be an option to override it on smaller screens. I don't know. But yeah, it seems likely that on 10X, on some devices, you won't be able to run in windowed mode.
Will I be reviewing the Spectre 14-inch 2-in-1? Very much like to. There's I'm very good relations with HP. In fact, I'm getting the EliteBook 1040 in soon. And I have so many laptops I need to review. It really sucks. It makes me sad. I'm one of those people where, and I'm sure everybody experiences this, when you just have so much stuff to do, you get paralyzed with the amount of work you need to do, and it just builds up, and you kind of get like depressed, so you don't do anything. I'm kind of like borderline in that right now. So I really want to review the EliteBook 1040 because, again, that's a device I personally really enjoy using. I actually really like EliteBook 1040s. So this is the new version. So I'm going to try to do a quick thing on that. The Spectre 14 2-in-1, for those who don't know, is a really cool looking device. It brings sort of the best of HP's Spectre stuff, but it does a 16:10 display. Or is it 3:2? I think it's 16:10. I forgot. But it's that 14-inch is sort of that perfect size I find for laptops.
Yeah.
Has a lot of cool features in it. So I'm sure we'll be offered it for review, and I consider that a high interest device. That is, I think a lot of people are interested in it too, which makes it a priority to kind of review. So I'm going to try to definitely do that as soon as it's offered. I don't have it yet, haven't been offered it yet for those wondering now.
Does the new Xbox remote have similar haptics like the PlayStation 5 remote? No, it's essentially the same as the Xbox One's remote, except in a slightly different shaped package. Like the new Series X controller it's ever so slightly a different shape. The triggers are now textured. The back of the handle's a little bit more textured as well, and it has a share button in the middle of it. But those are the only differences. There's no differences on the inside or capabilities of the controller. They're all the same. And they did that to maintain accessory compatibility across the last gen and current gen.
Someone confirmed it is a 3x2 aspect on the HP Spectre. Nice. Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun. That's basically like a Surface. That's gonna be the Surface laptop that is a 2-in-1 that people kind of wanting, but that doesn't detach, right? Have you ever reviews the Go-To P/8? I do not know what that is, so Surface earbuds look like you have weird earring. I have literally never heard that before. In fact, I think you're the first person to point out that these look like gauges in the history of Surface earbuds.
Which is not a long history. So
Yeah. So thank you for bringing this to our attention, as it's a very new observation.
man, I so wish they'd released the white ones with the matte case. They
I
won't.
don't know why that you care so much.
Because mine's all scratched.
That is just so funny.
I can't deal with scratches. You know I can't. The second this
Someone's
Duo
asking-
has a scratch, I'm throwing it away.
I actually had a light scratch on the glass. You can always see it in the light when it reflects. But I was
Yeah,
like,
but it's there and you know it.
that's why I have the Star Wars skin on to prevent that from happening. Someone's asking about what company Microsoft, specifically Xbox, will purchase next. Someone brought up EA versus Activision.
That'd be a
I don't know.
surprise. EA's worth a lot of money, though, right?
Yeah, that's
It's a big buy.
they couldn't afford it, and I don't think it would necessarily be a bad purchase. But I feel like they want smaller studios that have potential, right?
Yeah,
You want the return on investment.
Yeah.
And the idea there is you buy something that's small or medium size, but has room to grow in a bright future versus something that's already established.
That's what they did
If
with
you buy something
Bungie.
that's established, you're just buying the existing revenue stream,
Yeah.
hoping that. And that's why they bought, God, I forgot some of the name of the companies. This is a Jez question. But the company that did Hellblade.
ZeniMax, I'm pretty sure. Bethesda.
No,
Right.
Hellblade?
Oh, I don't know. Hellblade.
No, that's a different company.
Okay.
So I don't mention in comments. But like that company is a really small studio, but they were just creating some really innovative games. Like that's a smart purchase, right? Because you're buying that IP, but you're also buying their talents. It's like, oh, these guys are actually doing some really cool stuff, both in terms of game development, but also game technologies. So I think that's where to go. I think EA would be you're just taking that away from Sony, which hey, I mean, that's an option. But I think they would rather buy something a little bit different, smaller.
Yeah.
Surface Go Pentium with the 8 gigs of RAM, not the Core M.
We reviewed the original Surface Go Pentium, but not the Go 2.
There's no... Yeah, go read my review of the 4 gig version. And you can see the performance difference. Because the new Pentium is not really a new Pentium.
It's barely any different.
Yeah, it's like 100 hertz faster.
Just like the SQ1 to SQ2.
Yeah. I heard rumors from Valve newest network, whatever that is, the Game Pass might be coming to Steam sometime next year. Is there anything else that Microsoft and Valve are working on? I can't confirm or deny that. Tune into Jez Corden's podcast, Xbox 2. You can ask him there. I'm sure he may have more info on that. And what surprised me, Microsoft is all about making deals these days, and
Yeah.
we're better off for it. So.
If you can't beat them, join them.
Yep.
All right, a couple more questions, and I must head off.
Curtis is noting that he has a thin bezel crack on his Surface Duo by the USB-C port.
Yeah, a lot of people are reporting that. I think
Yep.
support maybe will replace it if you're lucky. If
Yeah,
you get
they
a
have
nice
been.
person. Yeah.
Yeah, the support's been pretty good at. I mean, someone had a device in Australia and they took care of it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so they're pretty good on that support stuff. I still recommend, of course, I'm using the magnetic adapter. It's not nearly as pretty, but
it works.
yeah, I feel like it does remove that stress concern. So I like the Surface earbuds. I just recently got the graphite color by getting a $50 to $25 credit from Cortana Surface headphones removal. They're not heavy at all, and I'm able to run with them. Yeah, the earbuds, my only issue in the review was they're missing some features that other earbuds in this price range category feature.
Would have loved wireless charging.
Yeah, that's one of them. Pausing music when you come out of your ear kind of thing. There's a couple other little features, and they're relatively high asking price compared to, say, the Pixel Buds and everything like that, or my negatives. But as you can see, I'm wearing them, and I do like them a lot. They are super comfortable, and the audio quality I think is really good too. So.
As you guys work a lot in front of computers, any advice on good health regarding posture, wrist, etc.? My only advice would make sure you get a standing desk because it's important to stand up
Yes.
sometimes. Sitting
Actually,
down all day can really do you in, and it's bad for you in the long run.
sounded like you said seeing Dan all day can do you in. I was like,
No,
that was harsh.
sitting down can do you in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, make sure you get a standing desk and stand up for at least a couple hours a day, I think. On and off.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be constant, but on and off.
Yeah, I backed that up. Also, get a good standing desk, meaning it's motorized. Don't get the hand crank is okay. You want
it to be easy because standing up enough is enough, right?
Yes.
You don't want an excuse.
You want to remove barriers to entry, as they're called. Mine's motorized.
Yes, that's mine.
I also suggest at the end of the day, if you're sitting and you're done, put it into the standing mode. So when you get there in the morning, it's already in that position. Because you're the first thing in the morning, if I see a chair, it's in, well, I got to sit down now. I just want to get on the computer. But if it's standing, I'll kind of stand and standing. But standing desk, definitely huge. You can get the little treadmills that go under your desk while you're walking. I haven't gone that far yet. I already got enough crap in my office.
Do you think it'd be obvious if I had a treadmill on the podcast?
Yeah. I also recommend this doohickey. This is these are common as heck.
It's a baby strap.
Yeah, it's a baby strap. It's a jock strap. No, this goes, you throw it around your shoulders and it holds your shoulders in place, basically. Nice. As my mom used to always yell at me, quit rounding your shoulders, stand up straight. I'm really bad at that stuff. My posture I've been working on for a while. But this basically holds back your shoulders and it trains you. It gets you trained into what you're supposed to be doing with your shoulders. Also, in general, if you have bad posture stuff, check out the YouTube channel Athlean X, ATHLEANX. He does a lot of exercise stuff. He's also a physical therapist, and he has some of his videos that focus on correcting your posture, and they're really good tips, including stretching and certain things you should doing. Other than that, have a good pair of shoes. If you're doing a standing desk, get a standing mat. A lot of people forget about that.
I need one of those. I haven't got one yet.
Because the problem when you're standing all day, if you're on a flat surface,
hurts your feet eventually. Yeah,
hurts your feet. It doesn't. You're still using your stabilizers to hold yourself up, and they're going to fatigue. A standing mat, which sounds weird, is basically an angled mat. It has various hills and valleys on it, sharp angles, and including like a thing in the middle. And it allows you to reposition your feet, so you can take the pressure off of one leg and sort of alter the balance. If you don't like standing desk and you don't want a sitting chair or you want something in between, they do make chairs that are single. It's like a single stick and it's on a base and it kind of rotates around. So you're kind of like in a, you're kind of squatting a bit, but it's like a,
now it's just forceful torture.
Yeah, but they're padded. They look comfortable,
okay.
But it holds you up, and you're in this like in between kind of position, and it kind of moves around too. I've been meaning to kind of get one of those, but now I have a $500 gaming chair. So. You could try a kneeling chair; those are fun too. The Swedes came up with it. Go on Amazon, type in kneeling chair, you'll see what I mean. They're not great for hours of sitting into, but they are good for shifting positions. And that's really kind of the key here. So,
this will be the last question. Any news about a Surface Book 4 or a new design? No. And I do not think we'll hear anything about a new Surface Book for at least another year and a half. Because the Surface Book was only refreshed this year. And if history is anything to go by, the Surface Book is on a 2 to 2.5 year refresh cycle. So we've got a long way to go.
Someone's mentioning face pulls. Yes, Athlean X, that guy. I've got his name. Damn it. But yeah, face pulls is a type of exercise you do with ropes and weights, and it strengthens the back muscles near the shoulder blades, basically. I was back when I would actually go to the gym and there wasn't a pandemic, I was doing those every single night because that's what happens is you spend years with bad positioning, your stabilizing muscles get weak, and that's why you hunch over and everything like that. It's hard. Humans are poorly designed. We weren't we weren't meant to stand like this all the time. It's like it has a lot of it helped us for hunting because we could see better in the savannah. That's the theory, but you get back problems and all these other issues, and you slouch. It's I don't know. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's a surprise that humans even are able to operate. Really.
Yeah, yeah. I have a whole. If you ever want to hear me on the podcast talk about this stuff, I have a lot of rants about biology and why humans are poorly designed,
Yeah.
and why there is no watchmaker. That's a theory that we have about humans. Any update on my Twitter account? I still don't have access to it, and Twitter hasn't responded to me. Which is I'm now used to as being the current situation. As I mentioned towards the end of the podcast, I think it was I'm actually technically okay with not having my Twitter account. It's been really nice vacation. I've been getting more work done, more writing. I'm sure I'll eventually get back in. If you guys want to ping Twitter support, you can do that. I wouldn't say no, but yeah, they're even have a verified account. You don't get any better service with them. It's just yeah, they just go on and on and on. So.
And on that sad note, it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next Friday, same time. Follow us on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. We'll keep you updated on when we go live and all of that good stuff. But until then, we will see you next time.
Take care, everyone.